Beneath the old oak. The first time Ethan saw Clara, she was sitting beneath the old oak tree at the edge of town, sketching in a worn leather notebook. Her hair fell loosely over her shoulders, strands catching the late afternoon sunlight. He almost walked past, but something about her stillness made him stop. "Is it all right if I sit here?" he asked, his voice unsure. She looked up, smiled softly, and nodded. That was the beginning. Over the weeks that followed, Ethan returned to the oak tree whenever he could. Clara was always there, sometimes drawing, sometimes simply watching the sky. They talked about little things at first, books they loved, places they dreamed of visiting, memories that still lingered. But slowly, their conversations grew deeper. Clara told him about her mother's favorite lullabies, about how she wanted to paint the sea though she'd never seen it. Ethan confessed his fear of leaving town, of failing, of never becoming the man he hoped to be. One evening, rain clouds gathered overhead. Instead of leaving, they stayed beneath the oak, listening to the thunder roll in. Clara laughed as the first drops fell, tilting her face to the sky. Ethan couldn't help but stare, struck by how alive she looked. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Time passed. The oak tree became their place, where secrets were shared, where silence was safe, where love grew quietly. But life, as it often does, shifted. Clara received an offer to study art in another city, far away. When she told him, her voice trembled. "I don't want to leave you," she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. "You have to go. This is your dream." The night before she left, they sat together beneath the oak, their hands intertwined. No promises were made, no dramatic goodbyes. Just two people holding on to the moment, knowing it had to end. Years later, Ethan still visited the oak. He built a life in town, steady and quiet, yet whenever he sat beneath the tree, he could almost hear her laughter in the rustling leaves. One golden autumn afternoon, as he leaned against the trunk, he heard footsteps approach. He looked up, and there she was, older, her eyes carrying the same spark. She dropped her suitcase to the ground and smiled. "Mind if I sit here?" she asked. His heart raced, just like that first day. He smiled back. "Always." And once again, beneath the old oak, their story began anew. The bridge at dusk. Every evening, Emma walked home across the old wooden bridge that stretched over the quiet river. It was her favorite part of the day, when the sun melted into shades of gold and pink, and the world seemed to pause. One evening, as she lingered at the railing, she noticed someone sketching at the far end of the bridge. He was tall, with messy dark hair, and his hands moved quickly across a notebook. Curious, Emma walked closer. "Beautiful sunset," she said softly. He looked up, startled, then smiled. "It is. I was trying to capture it, but I don't think I ever can." She leaned over to see his sketch, a mix of charcoal and hurried lines, imperfect yet alive. "It's lovely," she said. His name was Daniel, an artist who had recently moved to town. That evening turned into many more. They met at the bridge often, sometimes talking for hours, sometimes just sitting in silence, watching the sky change colors. Emma shared her dreams of becoming a writer, though she admitted she was afraid no one would ever care about her words. Daniel confessed his own doubts, that his art was never good enough, that he felt like a shadow of what he wanted to be. One evening in late autumn, the air crisp and sharp, Daniel handed her a folded piece of paper. "I drew this for you," he said. Inside was a sketch of Emma on the bridge, her face turned toward the fading sun. Beneath it, in small handwriting, he'd written, "You make the world worth painting." Her throat tightened. "Daniel," she whispered. He stepped closer, nervous but resolute. "I don't know if I can capture sunsets, or rivers, or the perfect light. But I know I don't want to spend another evening without you." The breeze carried his words, soft but certain. Emma's heart answered before her voice did. She reached for his hand, and he held it like something fragile and precious. From that day, the bridge became their place. Not just for sunsets, but for beginnings. Emma started writing again, inspired by Daniel's courage, while Daniel painted more than ever, his work filled with warmth he hadn't known before. They never stopped meeting at the bridge. Some evenings were filled with laughter, others with quiet comfort. And though the seasons changed, the feeling never did, the gentle certainty that love had found them in the simplest of places, at dusk, on a wooden bridge over a quiet river. The bridge at dawn. Evelyn always crossed the old stone bridge on her way to work. It was quiet in the early morning, when the mist hung low over the river and the world still felt half asleep. For years, she noticed a young man standing at the same spot, sketching in a worn notebook. At first, she only glanced. Then, day by day, curiosity grew. One morning, she stopped. "What are you always drawing?" she asked. The man looked up, startled, then smiled. "The river. But it never looks the same twice." He showed her the page, swirls of pencil lines, water caught in motion. His name was Adrian, an art student who found inspiration in the way the sun touched the river at dawn. Evelyn, a teacher, began leaving home earlier just to catch him there. Their conversations grew longer, about books, music, their dreams. Over weeks, the bridge became their meeting place. He once admitted, shyly, "I first drew you, actually. That morning you walked across in the rain, holding a red umbrella." She laughed, flustered, but her heart warmed at the thought. Seasons changed. In winter, they stood close for warmth. In spring, cherry blossoms drifted into the water below them. By summer, neither of them called it coincidence anymore, it was something deeper, a quiet thread pulling them together. One morning, Evelyn found Adrian waiting with no sketchbook, only a folded piece of paper. "This is for you," he said softly. Inside was a drawing of the bridge, the river, and her, standing at the edge with her red umbrella. But this time, he had drawn himself beside her, their hands almost touching. Her eyes lifted to meet his, and without words, she slipped her hand into his. From that day forward, the bridge was no longer just a path they crossed. It was the place where two lives, once separate, had found each other. The cafe by the river. Evelyn had always loved the little cafe by the river. Its wooden chairs creaked with age, the windows fogged up during winter, and the smell of roasted coffee beans lingered in the air like a familiar melody. She came every Sunday with her notebook, writing down thoughts that never became stories. One rainy afternoon, as she sat by the window, someone asked softly, "Is this seat taken?" She looked up. A young man with kind eyes and an umbrella dripping rainwater stood there. She shook her head, and he sat across from her. His name was Daniel. They spoke little at first, exchanging polite smiles. But soon, conversations began to grow, about books, music, the meaning of happiness. Every Sunday after that, he appeared, always carrying the same umbrella. Evelyn started to wonder if it was fate or coincidence. Over the weeks, their friendship deepened into something unspoken. Daniel would listen to her dreams of becoming a writer, and she would laugh at his stories of getting lost in new cities. One evening, as the sunset painted the river gold, Daniel handed her a folded piece of paper. It was a sketch of the cafe, with two figures sitting by the window. He had drawn them. Underneath, he had written, "Every story begins somewhere. I hope ours begins here." Her heart skipped. She didn't need to write this moment down. It was already etched in her forever. That night, when he walked her home beneath the umbrella, their hands brushed. Neither pulled away. And in the quiet rhythm of the rain, Evelyn realized, sometimes love doesn't arrive like thunder. Sometimes, it simply sits down across from you on a rainy afternoon. The bridge at midnight. Clara had always loved walking across the old stone bridge in her town. It was quiet, hidden from the noise of the city, and at night the lanterns reflected on the river like scattered stars. One rainy evening, she found herself there again, umbrella trembling in her hand as the storm pressed down. That was when she saw him, Daniel. He was standing at the other end of the bridge, soaked, his dark hair clinging to his forehead. They hadn't seen each other in 3 years. 3 years since he had left for another country with dreams bigger than their small town could hold. 3 years since their last kiss under the same lantern glow. Clara, he whispered when they met halfway. Her name sounded the same on his lips, soft and careful, as if he were afraid it might break. You came back, she said, her voice caught between joy and disbelief. I never stopped coming back, Daniel replied, a small smile tugging at his lips. Every time I closed my eyes, I was here. With you. Clara laughed nervously, brushing away a tear that mixed with the rain. You left without saying goodbye properly. I thought it would be easier that way, he admitted, lowering his eyes. But it never was. Not one day. For a moment, only the rain spoke for them, drumming on the stone, whispering against the river. Clara felt her heart beating like it had on that last night, when she had watched him walk away. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Daniel said. I needed to see you. To tell you I'm done running from the only place I belong. He looked at her, searching her face as though the answer to his future rested there. Clara's fingers tightened around her umbrella, then slowly released it. The wind caught it and carried it into the dark water below. With trembling hands, she reached for his instead. You hurt me, she said softly. But I've missed you every single day. Daniel stepped closer, pulling her into his arms, and the storm seemed to soften around them. Under the lantern's golden glow, Clara lifted her face, and Daniel kissed her, gentle at first, then desperate, as though the years apart had been only a pause in their story. The rain kept falling, the river kept flowing, but on that bridge at midnight, time stood still. And for the first time in years, Clara believed in forever again.